Hey guys, Wintermeat here. I'd like to give a quick update before we start this video on making an arcade machine. So I've very recently moved in to my new residence at the lovely University of Toronto campus. And I will be starting classes tomorrow. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to keep up this weekly release schedule, but I will try my best. If I have to, I will pull this back to once every 2 weeks to keep my sanity intact. But it'll still be the same sort of content that you're used to. Thanks for supporting me, and I hope you like this video. So to start off, we can start with the normal cube. We'll loop cut it in the middle, delete half of it, and add a mirror modifier. Make sure you set the correct axis, and you turn on clipping. And now we can modify this. So what you want to do is have it face on, then you want to make few, and you want to just extrude this up. Sorry, just pull it up. So you hit G, and you grab it, and you move it up. Then what you want to do is loop cut it a couple times. So we'll start by thinking what this actually looks like. So first we have kind of a plate in the middle for the joysticks, and then on top we have a sort of covering over the screen. So that means we're going to have to put loop cuts to allow us to make those extensions. So this will be where we place our controller, and I can see that this is a little bit too tall, so I'm going to move it down a little bit. And I'm going to make some more loop cuts here, and I'll move both of these vertices forward a little bit. And just like that, we have the general likeness of an arcade machine. Now feel free to polish out this blocky detail, but right now we're going to start making the outer seam. I'm not really sure what this part is called, but it's kind of an extension to this. So you want to extrude this out. Don't move it, just extrude it and click immediately after, and then scale it up. Now you're going to see that some of these edges aren't exactly right, so you need to move them into place manually. Like, see, this one is causing another one to overlap, so we're going to move it down a little bit. You may want to edit this on the vertex level, so we can sort of even out the parts that aren't looking right. And there we go. So most of these machines don't have too much of a gap at the bottom between like the floor and the bottom of the machine. So we could actually remove that all the way, but I kind of like how it looks, so I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap. Now, it's still hollow, so what we need to do is extrude this out a little bit. So this will be the width of the machine, the seam on the side. And then you want to hit Control F, and then grid fill. And now we're back to having quads, and we have this cool rim around the edge. So, next up, let's make the buttons. So for our normal button, you want to make a circle and just move it out somewhere you can edit it easily. Then all you have to do is extrude it up. Hit E again, extrude it inwards, up a little bit, And this is going to have a bit of a divot in the center, so keep on extruding it in, and then move it down slowly. And then when you think you're done, hit F, and then that'll make a face in the middle. You don't need to make on the face on the bottom because we're not actually going to be able to see that. And make sure you right-click it and select Shade Smooth. Oops, and I think I forgot to turn on screencast keys. Sorry about that. So you want to scale this button down. Now I haven't played on too many of these machines, so I know their button layouts differ, but we'll go with a simple, maybe like 4 or 5 buttons, maybe 6, 2 rows of 3. We'll go with 2 rows of 3 buttons, different colors. So you want to fit it to this surface, scale it down, and move it up. You can hit Z twice if you want to move it along the vertical axis, along an axis with coordinates with respect to itself as opposed to the world, which can make it easier. See, it doesn't move along the global axis because then it would get misaligned. Anyways, so you want to make that, and when we work with the top view, so we'll just place the buttons where it looks right. Careful when you move it on multiple axes because it might get misaligned with the board. You want to duplicate this. Now you can do Alt D if you like, which will save memory because it's simply instancing the object. So this one will be the same as this, and that can save some memory. And also, any changes you make to a single one of these buttons is going to change all of them. See, look. So that's a pretty useful trick. So let's make a material for this, just so we can see how this works. Oh, and you want to switch it to Eevee because that'll be much faster. So we'll color these buttons red, and we'll duplicate them so we have another set of linked buttons. Make sure to move them down so they're flush with the screen. And this time click this 2 and change these ones to a nice blue color. And you want to move these off to one side. Okay, great. Now for the joystick. That'll be pretty simple. All it is a sphere with a cylinder sticking at the bottom. So what we can do is we can select this bottom vertex, delete it by X and vertices, and then just extrude it down. Simple as that. Now just scale it to the correct size. Don't worry if it's too long, we can always just hide it, or I guess we may have to scale it down so it doesn't actually just like poke through the bottom of this board. And scale it down like that. And put it right here. So make sure again to hit Shade Smooth. Now you want to apply a different material to the head of the joystick and the metal body here. So we'll make two materials. The first one we can just make the same color as the red buttons. The second one we want to make a new one for metal and just assign it, and we can change the properties later when we do all the materials. So just scale that if you think it looks right, and there we go. Now we'll apply a bevel modifier. So in the real world, most things don't actually look so sharp as these, say without these edges, without this, they look like razor sharp. So we need to add a bit of bevel so they look more natural. You can turn this down to like 0.02, maybe 0.01, and it'll just give your model a more polished look. Alright, now for the coin slot, we could put it as an extension of the mesh, but it's just easier to make a separate one. So just make another cube, scale it down, move it into the body, and scale it on the correct axis. You know that to lock an object on an axis, all you have to do is press S and then the axis that you want to scale it on. So to scale it on the Z axis, all you have to do is Shift SZ, like that. Alright, so now for the coin slot, we can simply cut a hole, or perhaps we should mirror this first. So delete a half, mirror, deselect the wrong axes and apply the correct ones, turn on clipping. So we can simply just make a bunch of loop cuts with Ctrl R and extrude inwards. Now we have a simple coin slot like that. Oops. And if we want to make like a circular lock, we can actually just add a cylinder. So make sure you're in edit mode when you do this, because we want them to be part of the same object. So make a cylinder, move it out somewhere you can see it, scale it all the way down, and move it into place by hitting G, locking it to the correct axis, and then you want to rotate it 90 degrees. Let's put it right here. Okay, and we'll do this in looked at because it'll be a little bit easier to see. Maybe just solid. You'll want to add a bevel modifier to this as well, so it'll look a bit more natural. Okay, so we have a problem with this cylinder. So we have that mirror modifier attached, and we need to keep that in mind. So we'll just select one half because it's kind of overlapping with itself and causing those weird artifacts. So make sure you just fill that face. And we can scale it down if we like. Make a vertical slot, extrude that inwards. And we have a really crappy keyhole. That's good enough for now. Okay, so now a couple more things to do. So these machines usually have some sort of a display up top, so I'll make this a little bit wider so you can see it. And we'll maybe have this angled upwards a little bit. We'll apply a trim to this outer edge right here. So you can double click to select the edge loop. Just make sure all parts are selected. But you cannot have these faces selected because we're only going to be applying this trim, so you can shift click these ones. And so we'll add a black color to the outside. And we'll add a nice silver trim to this rim. You might also want to add it to these inside parts. So an easier way to do that is just to select this edge loop, and then shift select this edge loop, and now you have all the faces selected. So I'll assign the same material to it. Now in order to do this on this side, it's a little bit trickier, but you'll see, not that difficult. Just select this, extrude it, scale it down, and you're going to have to manually realign the edges. just based on how the scaling works. So just select the edge, and we're taking this part. So remember what you're looking at. What seams we're correcting. We want it to generally be as even as we can make it. Now it may just be easier if you just select the faces one by one, in this case. And once you have all of them selected, we'll apply this trim material. It's also a good idea to give your materials names that make sense, but I'm lazy, so I'm just going to call this trim. And there we go. So right now this looks a little bit flat because we don't actually have any lighting. But one thing we should do first, after applying the same material to this coin slot, is we're going to make a nice, interesting texture for the screen. Now, in order to do that, we'll have to apply a new material to it, as well as a special material to the heading panel. So we'll call this screen, and we'll call the one we assigned to this heading header, and then we'll assign it. I will turn off the lighting a little bit. If I mess with the colors too much, it might look a little weird. Okay, and now you can see an artifact here. I'm going to guess that is because of the position of the bevel, so you just want to move it up one in the modifier stack with this, and then it'll be going. Because bevel kind of messes with the seam that's being mirrored, so it might cause some rendering artifacts in the final render. Anyways, we're going to apply two different image textures to this screen. You can pick any random one off of like Google Images if you just search for Pac-Man or something. I'm going to use an old render, but it really doesn't matter. So all you have to do is delete this, go add an emission shader, so you can just hit E to do that. You want to turn up the strength to like 5, and you'll see why in a moment. And go to texture, image texture, and I'll just pick a random one from one of my recent experiments. Now the mapping on this isn't really going to be right, but that's okay because I actually want to have this kind of effect. So we'll give it a generated texture, and now we have these cool lines on the screen. And for this, I think we can just give that simple, oops, I deleted it. Sorry, so you want to add the material output back. You also want to add simple emission shader. Give this, say, a strength of 4, and white. Alright, so we already have a kind of interesting looking screen. Now if you wanted to give this a proper image texture, I'll show you how to do that on my website. But right now this will do. Okay, so why did I make you give this any emission strength? Because as you know, or don't, Eevee does not treat emissive materials as if they cast light. Well, it's because you can use it to add some bloom, which looks pretty cool. Perhaps some volumetrics too, but we can do that once we get to the special effects. Now for the ground, I'll show you an easy way to make like a hexagonal platform. So what you want to do is add a circle, change in here the number of vertices to 6, and then we'll scale it up, fill the face with F, go into edit mode, make sure you're on like edge select or something, fill the face with F, scale it down a little bit, and now we have a nice platform. for our arcade machine to sit on. Okay, well, it's coming together already. So you want to make sure you only look at this from the front. I'm not sure why this back face has the same material applied. That should not be happening. So make sure you assign it the correct material. I probably did it by accident at some point. And you can always turn up the emission values on these shaders. Okay, so you want to be careful when you edit these materials as well. So now you want to position your camera, let's say directly in front of your model. Control-Alt-O, sorry, 0. And we'll move it to focus on our project. Now for some actual lighting. We'll do this with 2 area lamps, and we'll turn down the brightness of the world a little bit so we have it nice and dark, so we can provide a cool contrast. So first, a sun lamp to establish some clear shadows. You can hit G and then double tap Z to move the camera along its local Z axis, which allows you to zoom in and out like this. Also another useful tip. Okay, and then we're going to make a couple more lights. So here, we'll add one facing this way, and one facing this way. And let's change them different colors to maybe the neon of an arcade. You want to move this closer so it has more of an effect. This one can be maybe a blue color, perhaps purplish. And let's not forget about this plane. So we'll give it a slightly reflective material by turning up the metallic value. And we'll turn down the roughness. Then you need to enable screen space reflections. And we're looking good. Now the more you turn down this roughness value, the more clear the reflection will be. So how clear you want it to be depends on your preference. You may also want to apply a point lamp right in front of the screen to sort of imitate some light coming off of it, as well as a irradiance volume, which will imitate light bounces that are calculated in cycles. So scaled up to fit your scene, what you want to receive light bounces. You want to go into indirect lighting and hit bake indirect lighting. And you'll be able to see the light bouncing off from this actual emissive material, which is pretty cool. So you can see this orange light casting some light on the edges of the arcade machine, which didn't happen before, as you can see if I delete it. So now you can see no effect from the orange lighting. And yeah, so there we go. Now a couple minor improvements we can make. First, we can move, if we want to have a cool like spotlight effect. Oops. So we'll go back into the default editor. Why can't I select this? So we'll move this in a little bit closer. This light as well. So they're in the camera view. And then we'll give this a bit of fogginess. So we'll go into shading. change this to world. We're going to add a volume scatter shader, plug it into the volume, and now everything's going to go black because our density is way too high, but you can see this tiny spotlight effect. So what we need to do is turn down the density to something a lot lower, perhaps 0.05, and we'll try to put these lamps on the edges of the scene so it doesn't look like they're just floating. Alright. Turn on ambient occlusion just to improve the lighting a little bit. And freestyle. So we have a cartoony outline effect. So I'll just show you what that does here. And freestyle adds those outlines. Now I've noticed we can't actually see this part too well. So what I'm going to do is add another light. Time from below. And cast a bit at an angle. And we're also going to make this a new material and make it a slightly different color from the rest of the mesh. Now you can see that there are some pretty fine details on this. It'll make it easier to see if we apply a bevel modifier and turn it up a little bit more. Alright, not working. Let's just try that again. Bevel. No? Okay, Blender just doesn't want to cooperate today, that's fine. We can turn up the metallic on this a little bit because it's supposed to be like a metally sort of object. Still a little hard to see, but that's alright. We also might want to add some speakers. So how do we do that? If you want to make this really simple, all you have to do is add a sphere. Go to side view. Wireframe deletes most of it, and then just move this part. Well, first let's make it a good dark color, black, and we want to scale it, and we want to fit it to this mesh. Make sure you set it on shade smooth again. Rotate it so that it fits nice and snug against the screen. I'm not sure how many is traditional, but I'm gonna go with 3. So we'll hit Alt-D, and we'll just move it along the correct axis, and now we have some speakers. These aren't actually dark enough, so I'm just going to turn it a little bit darker. A little bit more. Alright, that's looking not bad. Now, if you want to make this stand out a little bit more, what we can do is, so we can see in this final render that we don't have any line tracing along these edges. So if we want to do that, all we need to do is go back, select these edges, hit Control E, hit Mark Freestyle Edge. Then you want to go into this Freestyle tab and hit Edge Mark. Perhaps also Material Boundary, so we mark all the places where the materials change. Alright, so for this, what you might want to do is select this single vertex, sorry, Oh, and since we've duplicated it like this, we only need to do this once. We'll delete it and fill it. Hopefully that gets rid of the weird artifact. No, it doesn't. That's okay. Let's just turn down the thickness of the freestyle. Say 0.5. Okay, that's looking a lot better. And I guess since we have all these spotlights in the corners, we might as well add one on this one. And rotate it into place. And there we go, an arcade machine, made in Blender. One of the simpler projects you can make, but an interesting thing to make nonetheless. So I hope this video was useful for you and you find it helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe to my channel. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.